Test, test. Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. My name is Octoman, and I try to fix first or see if the sound is working this time. So probably you hear me, probably you don't. I want to do a test over here, but somehow it doesn't seem to. Test, test, one, two, three. Oh, hi, Enzo. Well, thanks a lot. I tried to fix now everything, so it seems that the sound is working so far. So I tested this one out, so we can actually and literally, yeah, start with everything so far. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, since the last video or the last live stream does not have, yeah, or wasn't working so far as I wanted to, I am going to go over that once again and see if everything works. And of course, yeah, hope you enjoy that stream. So what we are going to do today is we are creating a rating panel, which you're gonna see in APK files, like in games on the Google Play Store or whatever, where people are attracted to rate your game, for example. What does that mean is there is going to be, that that pop-up window where the buttons are please rate the game now with 5 stars and so on and so forth if you enjoy it, of course, otherwise remind me later. And that's what we're going to do today. So this tutorial gonna go probably about 30 to 40 minutes depending on how fast I am and how you are, how you have questions and stuff like that. So please open your Unity if you want to follow up, or just, yeah, you can watch the video later on if you don't like to see the full content right now. So in about 40 minutes, we should be able to have everything completed so far. So let's get started. At first, yeah, create a new scene or whatever where you can create your rating system. What you want to do is you want to create a new UI canvas. So in this canvas, we're gonna show our panel later on. And this panel is going to, or this canvas is going to stay active the whole time, but the panel inside, we're gonna activate and deactivate whenever we need it. So what we wanna do is we create another UI. In this case, we can do image. Hi. And this image can be resized to anything. Once again, if you guys don't hear sound or have problems with the sound, please let me know. Otherwise, say if you can hear me, that would be nice as well. So again, you can yeah, resize that little image to your needs and put this into the canvas wherever you like to, of course. Probably, or most of the time, it's going to be like centered, overlaying some other content, and see what's going on so far. So what we're gonna put in is some text elements in here where we can actually design everything around that box, as well as putting these buttons like left and right, or from top to bottom, whatever you please and like. What you also want to do, as always in your project, is you want to do the correct naming convention. That means this is going to be our rate or rating panel. I want to make sure that this is going to work, and we later on find this panel, like when you have like hundreds or thousands of different panels, you want to make sure that you always find your rating panel or anything else which is related to canvases or whatever. So with that rating panel, we can do a background over here. And this background can be tinted by the color. So we can give it a nice blue tint or a green tint or whatever we please and like once again. And we can later on also put in other elements in here, or you can do your own design like in Inkscape or any other program you prefer and create your own panel like specific button designs or even panel designs. So, but that is not content or not part at the moment of this tutorial. So what you also want to put in is UI text. You can also use Mesh Text Pro if you like to, but at the moment oh, thanks you for that, Narazu-chan. Whoa, what a strange name. Well, yeah, good to know that the audio this time works pretty good. So, and in this text, we can basically put in any information like, do you enjoy the game? Enjoy the game. And then we can also say, please rate now, you know? So, please rate now. So this is going to be seen later on by the player or by, or for the player. We can also center stuff like here. We can make it bold so it's seen be a bit better. Also, we can, of course, make it super black or any other, any other color if you like to. And of course, you can put in yeah, can put this at any position if you like to. And of course, you're gonna create another UI text where we're gonna put in some stars. I'm gonna give you some example about the stars, and well, for that, I'm gonna open a new browser window. What you can do is you can type in ASCII and then, for example, star. And what you're gonna land up in is going to be star symbols, alt codes, where you can get different stars with different things inside, like with different designs, and you can probably choose one of these if you like to, like with some equal signs under them and so on. There are also a lot of other symbols you can get, like as you can see, there are even arrows, check marks, Latin crosses, whatever you can see, even skulls and crossbones, all of that. Whenever that is going to be inside or related to your font or inside the font accessible, then you can just copy that. I'm gonna do that by Control C, and then I go back to my text over here and Control V to put it inside the view over here. I can also tint these since they are related to text. And of course, we can give it a size. Maybe we're gonna do best fit, so they're gonna resize automatically. So, and what you can do is you're gonna try to attract the players to give you 5 stars, of course, because you want them to rate it and to stand out later on in the Google Play Store, for example. So that is how you can implement stars. You can also use image graphics to whatever you like and please, like rounded stars or whatever, or just design your very own ones when you have like shading and super nice graphics inside. This is absolutely not a problem at all. So what you're gonna do next is, of course, you're gonna create 2 buttons over here. So under the rating panel, select it UI button. So these buttons can be once again designed however you please and like. I'm gonna do mine like left and right. You can do them top to bottom, and so on and so forth. Nothing fancy at all with the design. Again, we don't cover this in this tutorial. So what we want to do is, again, we want to attract somebody to press this particular button over here, meaning you can design that again. You can make it tinted green, maybe a bit light green, something like that. So the player are probably pleased or actually more dragged into you to press this rate button. And what we're gonna do is we put some text here right now. So, and probably you want to do this bold as well as tinted, even more black, so it's more standing out as well. That's one thing I just forgot is inside the canvas, we want to make sure that the canvas scaler is set to scale with screen size. Probably something is now going to be strange. As you can see, it resizes a bit, but that's not a problem at all. We can actually go in again and scale this up and down to whatever we please and like, no problem at all. So keep that in mind. Canvas scale with screen size pretty much important over here, since in different resolutions and different builds, this might look different here and there. Okay, so If you don't like the quality of the text, you can always go inside the text as well and yeah, change some things like font size over here, and then you scale down the text so it's going to be more sharp edged. Well, usually. So also we try that. Maybe reduce, just scale this text down after you're done with that. Of course, you want to maybe go and do overflow over here. So you have a bigger text at all, but it is scaled down a bit. Nothing fancy. Once again, it is just to match or maybe make better, yeah, text or visible text. However, in the game view, it should look pretty good. When you go maximize and play, and you can check the quality of that, you can see it's absolutely crisp right now. So even in the center, these buttons are pretty crisp as well as that. So one thing I just noted is the police rate now is gone over here. So maybe I do not do the scale directly in here and maybe reduce or reduce this field over here and maybe go against best fit or do best fit in this case. So I activate that. So when I scale this down or actually change the size of the window, everything is good to go again. Gonna center this and once again check it out whenever you're pressing play. And you can see this is going to be crisp once again. So this button is going to be our rate button. So we want to rename it as well. And then we do a copy of that. So Control D in on the keyboard of when you're on a your Windows computer. And then you can say this is going to be my, let's say, later button or remind button. So this is going to be the one we are doing or checking out later on. So remind later or just later because it just doesn't fit at the moment in here. So, and I want to maybe do this like a warning one, like a red one, so I don't want to attract people to press on that. And that's pretty much everything we need now for the design. You can create now a prefab out of it if you like to, or if you want to have this in different scenes and so on. You don't have to recreate everything like that. So you probably want to go to your assets folder, create a new folder, name it prefabs, and then you put in the prefab directly by just dragging the rating panel inside of that. Also having a prefab later on is going to be rather good since you're actually able to create your own, let's say, assets out of that, and you can implement this in any other game you create later on as well. So just create an asset, import it later on, and you're good to go. Okay, since we are done with the design, we're gonna start with coding. So create a scripts folder over here, right click and C# script. I'm gonna name this maybe rating system. And then we should be good to go with that. So on my rating panel, I want to drag the rating system. So that's what I do after the compiler has been completely done running. Gonna put this over here so it is connected now to the rating panel directly. So open this one up in Mono Develop or Visual Studio. Gonna take a second here until it's open, and once done, I'm gonna zoom in a bit so you can see stuff better. So we don't need update, we just need start. And then we can actually go into and do some coding over here. So what at first do we want? We want to make sure that we are every time able to activate and deactivate the panel itself whenever we like to. So what we need is a connection to that panel. So it's public game object, let's say rating panel. So we need to set it active and inactive whenever we need and like, and we can set this one up later on in the inspector. What we also need is two string parameters. Actually, we can combine them to one, but when you want to make use of that in a different behavior, like not for Google Play Store, but maybe on, I don't know, the Windows app and so on, you're going to have the possibility to change them rather quickly and simple. So this first one is going to be a public a string, and I name it Google App ID. Whoops. So this Google App ID basically stores a string to the game itself. And we're gonna put in empty quotes in here, so just two quotes, one after another. And I'm gonna give you an example how this is going to look later on. Gonna type in example. It's going to be like com dot, then is the publisher name here, publisher, and then is the game name. In my example, it will be something like com dot octoman dot, let's say, memory. For example, if I'm working on a memory game or I have a memory game already, this is going to be something I'm gonna put later on into the string. I still want to keep this one empty since I want to debug that later on. And in start, we can later on once again, in start, we basically check if the app ID is actually empty or not. And we can give ourselves some kind of hint. Oh, you forgot to set this one up. Sometimes people tend to forget things. Okay, we need another string. This one is going to be a private string since we don't want to choose that or change that in the inspector. It's the Google game URL. So this is the URL where the market is going to be where like the first part of the URL. So this is not going to stay empty in here. We're going to put in something, and the something is going to be, as I told already, market. Then we say colon, double space. Then we put in a details, question mark, ID, and then an equal sign. So this is going to be the start of the URL we are talking to, and then we're going to put in whatever the Google App ID is and place them or both together so the app later on knows which URL to open in the Google, in the Play Store directly on your APK or in your phone, whatever. So what we also want is we want to have an integer over here. I call it initial count. This is going to be the number before we are showing the first rate time, this rating stuff over there. We need another one, which is going to be the remind later count. So this is going to be the one we are activating when, there's a typo. Whenever somebody is pressing on the later button, then I can remind or make use of this particular counter and set this one up correctly. So let's get started. At first, I want to make sure that the Google App ID is not empty. So I say on start if Google App ID is equal to string.empty. So it is an empty string. Then we want to give a debug.log something or log error. Oh, this doesn't have to be here. So just like that. So what we say is we debug that line and say debug.log error maybe. So we get a big error on our screen or into the console in this particular case and say maybe it's something like rating system and then maybe colon and then please set up Google App ID. So we have a reminder that we forgot to put in anything inside the Google App ID into this string over here. So that's for the debugging purposes. Now we want to deactivate, and that's what we want to do always in start. We want to deactivate the rating panel. So we say rating panel dot set active in quotes, oh no, in parentheses, false. So we just deactivate it. So what we also want to do is we want to store a key into player prefs. So we say if player prefs dot has key. So if it has a key, or in this particular case, if it has no key, so not is going to be like this exclamation mark in front. And we want to name the key, which is of type string. Let's say counter. So this we want to store all the counts inside the player prefs. Rather simple. Then we want to create that key. So player prefs dot set int, so it's of type integer because what we want to store is the initial count, or in this case any count, like the remind me later count if we talk to it, or initial count or anything else. We want to store that inside of that. So now we need to name the key. In this case it's a counter. Then we say comma, and what we want to put in is at first the initial count. So at first it is so that every time or whenever we are starting, we're gonna set this initial count to 3, but we want to store that over here only if that key does not exist. Later on, we're gonna go and decrease the amount, the stored amount, by 1 every time. And once it hits 0, we want to show the rating panel, so we don't overdo it against, or we don't overdo it, for the player of your game. So they're not getting too much, how shall I say, they don't get too much distracted or something like that, or nerfed by that. And at the very end, we want to activate our API, or I just call it activate API. This is nothing we have yet, so we're gonna create that in just a second. This is basically the call for everything around activating our panel. And it is checking several things. So first we create that. Void, if you have typos like myself, sometimes just copy and paste the name you have created and then put that into this. So we want to check two things in the activate API. At first, we want to check if we are connected to the internet, otherwise it doesn't make sense. And also if we are able to show the rating system. So let's create at first a bool, internet connected. We can also name that anyhow else, like check connection or something. So the bool in here is basically just requesting something. In this case, if we are connected, of course, to the internet, then we're gonna go and return a true or a false. So that's why this method is of type boolean. So what we can do is we can say if application dot, and now we have a special one. It's going to be internet reachability is not equal to, and then we get an enum which we can take, and what we want to do is we want to take network reachability dot not reachable. So if that is the case, we want to return true since we are connected to the internet. I know it's strange that we are not doing a not in here, but since this is actually, putting a negative one already, we need to negate this 2 times basically, and then we are good to go. And whenever we are not returning true, we want to return false, so we don't get any problems later on. Okay, so this bool is pretty much done so far. So what we can now do is in activate API, we can say if internet connected, open close parentheses, then we can do something. But also, as I said before, we want to check if we are allowed to show a actually a rating panel. And this is based on how much the player prefs count is going to be wherever it has been stored. In this case, we are starting with 3, so we need to count this times 3 times down before we are actually able to show the rating panel. I'm gonna show you everything about that later on whenever we are building that stuff. So I'm gonna create another function in here, another bool function, which is once again returning true or false. So, and this is going to be called can show rating panel, for example, or whatever you like. Once again, no typos. And in open close curly braces, at first we create a temporary integer of type or with the name count is equal to, and then we read now the player prefs. So we say player prefs dot getInt. So we want to get the information from a string key, and this key, of course, is the counter key we have created over here in the beginning. So what we're gonna do is we take this number and store that in count. And the next one we want to do is we want to decrement count. So we say count minus minus or minus equal 1, up to you. Next one is going to be, we want to check how big, actually count is. So we say if count is smaller or equal to 0, meaning we are allowed to show that, then we want to return true. So return true. Otherwise, when we are not doing that, we want to overwrite the current counter. So we say player prefs dot setInt, open close parentheses. Then, of course, once again, the first is the string key of type or with the name counter. Then we say comma, and then we want to store count in it. Why do we want to do that? Because we reduce it over here, and meanwhile, or the next time we are calling or requesting the counter, it's going to be 1 lower than before. Okay, so and what we also want to do is we want to return false at the very end, since we need to, yeah, whenever we are not returning true, we need to return false, of course. And that's everything for showing the actual thing. Now we just need to call it or request it, and that's what we're going to do once again in the activate API. So if both are true, so we put in here an AND operator, we can actually request now can show rating panel. So can show rating panel, open close parentheses. So if both are returning true, so we are connected to the internet and we can show the rating panel, only then we are activating the show panel or the rating panel. So rating panel dot set active and open close parentheses, we say true. Pretty good. So when those both of these are returning true, then we are showing the activate panel. Okay, so actually that is what we're gonna have so far, but now we want to prepare everything for the buttons. Let me reduce it a bit so we have more space over here. So the next thing is inside these buttons. Whenever we are pressing the remind button, we want to do something, as well as the rate button. So let's do the rate button first. Public void. So we just create a public function, because otherwise we are unable to call, or yeah, to call this function from a button directly, like on inside the on-click event. So it's like a void or public void, maybe rate button. And what we want to do is, at first we want to set the player prefs. So we say player prefs dot set int, and since the player was already pressing that particular button, we can give him like a higher number now, so he's not going to, get, yeah, informed by that too much, actually. So what we do is we override now the integer count, maybe use a bigger number, like maybe 50 or 100. It's up to you. You can even put in a million, so he's actually never seeing this one anymore. So once again, that is all up to you. Then we want to open the URL. So this is becoming interesting, since we're gonna put a string together like over here. We want to return a string, so I create a function of type string, and string, I name it get rate URL, something like that, open close parentheses. Basically, what we're going to do is we return the string parameters, put it together like the game URL and the Google App ID. So that's what we're going to do here. First, we're going to take the Google game URL plus the Google App ID. So, and in here, we can now say application dot open URL, and they request a string, and the string is going to be get rate URL. I'm gonna do this way because here we could return anything we like to. If we have like several different possibilities into like, for example, you're gonna have the App Store ID from the Apple App Store, then you're gonna have a different URL in this case. What you can do is you can get the rate URL based on the system where you're currently working on. I don't know the actual App Store ID for the iPhone or stuff like that, or for the Apple Store, but I believe you can easily find that out on your own when you're doing some Googling, whatever. Okay, so we're gonna have the rate URL over here. We open the URL inside the rate button. The last thing we want to do is we want to set the rating panel dot set active to be false. So we want to deactivate the panel and don't show it anymore to the player. Don't forget to save in between. So now we have the rate button and the get URL button. Hi, and thanks a lot for tuning in over here. And the last thing is we want to create the remind me later button. So maybe we're going to put this here in between. So we say public void. Once again, it needs to be public, otherwise we are unable to talk to it from the on-click event. And then we say maybe later button as a function name, open close parentheses, and then we open close curly braces over here. So what we're gonna do in here is we again set the counter inside the player prefs at first. So we say player prefs dot, and now we want to set an integer. And the integer, once again, is going to be our counter we already created before, comma, and then we want to put in a new value. And since it is the remind me later button, we want to make use of the remind later count over here. You can copy that value or just type it in, meaning whenever somebody is now pressing the later button, he's going to have to actually start the activate API 5 times before we are actually showing the rate later or the rate system once again. And the last thing is we want to deactivate the rate panel, so rating panel dot set active to be false. So because we have clicked something and this one is going to be gone right now. Okay, that's pretty cool. And don't forget to save your script as often as possible. And let's return back to Unity and see what the compiler has to tell us. So I'm gonna go to the rating panel and see if everything is working. The bottom right is always showing if the compiler is done running and happy about everything. So as you can see, in our rating panel, we want to have at first a connection to the rating panel directly, so we can drag it into it over here. So we can deactivate itself based on the script. Pretty cool. So the next thing is we want to check if the Google App API debug is going to run. So when I press play now, this one should be deactivated, but also when it comes into that, you can see the rating system reports, please set up the Google App ID. So I'm gonna make use of the Google App ID I have already, so I know this is working later on when we are checking that in any emulator. So it's octoman.memory. This is one game I have already in the Play Store and can check out. You can always link to your own content. Even later on, you can cross-promote things or games if you like to. I want to apply the changes to here, so that basically everything is stored also inside the rating panel, prefab, so it is reminding all of that. So how do you set your Google App ID later on is rather simple. You go to your build settings. That's the easiest way. Is also one in the edit one, and then you go to Android and to player settings. So if you are not working currently on the Android device but on PC or Mac, which is well the standard over here, you're gonna land in this spot. You need to press over here. No idea about that index out of range exception because it doesn't really make sense for me. So what you want to do is before you activate or before you export that, you want to set a package name. Usually in here, it is something like com.productname.company or something like that, which is also going to be over here in the very top, like default company something. So when you fill out or before you export it, please fill out everything. Do yourself that favor. Also put in all your icons if you like to, which are for Android going to be set in the very top, I mean. I don't care. So, and what you want to do, well, somehow it doesn't let me do anything. Give me a second, or my computer a second to fix that. Okay, there we go. So what you're gonna have in this new icons, you have like this HTTPI icons and all the other ones and can fill in all that, or you're going to make use of the legacy items or icons in this case. So that's all up to you. Since I'm working in Unity 2K18, that stuff is new or rather new for me. So in other settings, once again, of the Android stuff, you make sure that you have at least any package name which is connected later on to the Google App ID, of course. Make sure that in, I believe, publisher settings, you're setting your key store key before you publish that into the Play Store. What I want to do now is I want to build that as an APK, so we can test it actually in some kind of emulator. So I'm gonna do build, then I give it a name. In this case, it's rate system.apk. Gonna save that. Don't forget you need Android Studio and the JDK. I believe one special JDK up and running. Maybe they fixed that already. I have no idea. And Once that complete stuff is done, I'm gonna drag that into a emulator, which is emulating this APK file for me. So I'm gonna install it, and then I run it like 3 times to show you that the rating system is popping up after 3 times initial count. And then maybe when we say remind me later, then it's going to pop up 5 times afterwards. So you should ignore like everything is going to go in the background because nothing fancy at all, and still he is building that system. Once again, you later on, yeah, you whenever you create your game, everything is going to take a while here and there, anyways, depending on the size and all the models you have inside as well as all the other stuff. So once he's done with that, compiling and putting all stuff together and so on and so forth, so we're gonna switch over to BlueStacks, which is a Google Play Store, let's say emulator. You can also play games on that based or inside or from the Google Play Store. This is a JavaScript request, so I need to let this inside or let it through my firewall. And yeah, it should be done in a minute, hopefully. And then we can go and switch to BlueStacks and open all of that stuff up. I'm gonna put some stuff already together over here so I can yeah, easily drag that file, that APK later on inside that. So I go into my folder over here where it's going to be created. Maybe it's opening up, I don't know, in a second or two. Sorry for the waiting time. It's usually it doesn't take so long, but now it seems to be finished, so everything is back to normal. And in my folder over here, I'm gonna have the rating system APK. I'm gonna drag this over again and opening up my BlueStacks emulator. Even that is going to take a second until it's completely loaded. But we want to check if everything working so far. So I go to my apps over here in the background. And what I want to do is, after the engine has been started, completely I drag my rating system inside of that. So I can easily test things out. I can easily test my games out if everything is working and so on and so forth, and how it feels to play the game. So, and we can also emulate tabs using the mouse and all of that stuff. So if you don't want to do it live. So what I do now is I drag my rating system in here. It is also called rating tutorial. It was the name in the very top. And once it is completely yeah, activated and running, we can start it by just clicking on it. I ignore all the other icons here. I don't need them. So now it is completely installed. As you can see, BlueStacks rating tutorial has been installed. When I now press play, I'm gonna see nothing. Well, usually. So made with Unity, and as you can see, this is our empty scene. So what we now need to do is we need to start this game 3 times, because in start it is always calling the integration of the or is actually doing activate API. Sometimes it's a bit picky to start this instantly a second time. So BlueStacks has his problems here and there. So this is the second time. And now I try to start it again, maybe crash again. Yeah, there we go. Crashes another time. And now we are in the third one, and meaning we are now at 0. So in our player prefs, what does it mean? This panel is now showing up. The Rate Now button is possible to press, as well as the later one. If that is not pressable, then you need to make sure that inside Unity, let me close that, is the event system active. Otherwise, you are unable to press on buttons. Just keep that in mind. So we can press now the later button, which would give us the possibility to set the number to be 5, or we can press the Rate Now button. So let me press that and see if that is working. Oh no, we forgot something. We forgot something. That's why it's not working. Um, in the rating panel, there are these buttons, right? And we forgot to connect that on-click events to the buttons. So I'm sorry for that. So we go back to the rating panel, or actually we add the on-click event. with the rating panel, of course, connected. And then we go here, rating system. And then we want to call, of course, our rating button. Yeah, button or script. Same for the later button. I'm sorry once again for that. We're gonna put the rating button in here as well. Rating button, later button. So these are the scripts or actually the functions we have created beforehand. Don't forget to apply the changes to the prefab if you have created one. So these connections will always stay since they are not bold, like in bold text or something like that. Sadly, I have to rebuild that now. So I go to BlueStacks pretty quick and get rid of this APK. Do you want to uninstall? Yes. Then I want to delete it from my folder just in case. And I clear the console just in case. And sadly, I need to build this once again. So build, rate system, and I have to wait another some seconds here and there, or 1 minute or two, and then we should be good to go. Once again, I'm sorry about that. Sometimes stuff happens or you forget something. That's pretty normal, I believe. But this build might be a bit faster right now. That because we already built something and everything has been loaded in the background, Android Studio and stuff like that is already running, and also I don't have to press any nasty firewall things and all the other stuff which has happened before. And we should be done with that in a minute maximum, I guess, since we are already in the Gradle project and the validate signing release. There we go. So it has been built. I'm gonna drag in the new APK once again inside my BlueStacks. If it lets me, yes, there we go. So it is installing it again. By the way, all the player prefs should be deleted. So whenever you're reinstalling a game, it might or it will probably happen that the player prefs have been gone. As you can see, we are starting at 0 again, so player prefs do not store continuously on the device. So now we are on the second one. Maybe on the third one it's not showing up. We'll see that. If that's the case, we're gonna do a delete, but we don't have to. So as you can see, player prefs have been deleted as well. So now we are in the third time, we are able to press the rate now button. So what's going to happen, as you have seen in the background, it was destroying itself already, like it was disabling itself, probably setting itself to 100 times, and it sends me to the Google App ID of my game, which I have implemented inside the rating system. Once again, you can even cross promote things like left and right, back and forth, whatever you like and please. And like when you have like 20 games or so, you can even do make use of that code we have created, like checking for internet connectivity and put in some different URLs for your different games. Then you can once again cross promote inside one of your apps to all your other apps, for example. So, and that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you. When I now go back, I'm back. But what I also want to show when I now start the game once again or this build again, it should not pop up anymore for the next 100 times. That's everything I wanted to show and cover in this tutorial. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that stream and live stream, and hopefully the sound hasn't been too awful as well as everything else. And I hope to see you in another tutorial. If you like stuff like that, like live streams and so on and so forth, feel free to do some requests and so on and so forth. So yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in and for your watch time. And I hope to see you in another tutorial or even, yeah, or even a video. Bye bye.